Hello, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of DC Studios' Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 7, entitled Like a Keith in the Night. This is the penultimate episode of Season 2. Yes, we only have one episode remaining of this season, and we are set up for a interesting season finale next week on Peacemaker. I am enjoying this season for the most part. A couple of episodes were, I'm not gonna say miss, but wasn't as good as other episodes within this season, and this episode being one of them. I think it was more of my expectations, coming off of last week's episode, just a juggernaut of an episode where we got cameos and setting up a bigger world, setting up future stories to be told within the DC universe and whatnot. I thought that we were going to kind of build upon that in this episode, and that's nobody's fault but me, setting my expectations so high for this episode. That being said, it wasn't a bad episode. It was just kind of a palate cleanser, if you will. It was an episode that was exciting within the Peacemaker universe, but not in the DC universe as a whole. But that's just my humble opinion. This episode picks up after we left off of last week's episode. That was amazing. Like I said before, Adebayo has discovered that, along with the rest of the group, that she is not welcomed in this world. This is not a world for the melanin people, if you will, those with dark complexions or different races altogether. This is Earth X, which is in the comics. It is. I didn't follow anything in Earth X. I knew of Earth X, but I'm not a Earth X aficionado where I could tell you, each and every aspect of that world. But I do know of it. It's funny that I didn't think about it till after, especially when I watch all the different breakdowns of last week's episode, and everybody referred to it as Earth X, and I'm like, wait, I heard of that. And then it all came to me like, oh yeah, stupid, that's the Earth that they're in. But this is a Nazi ruled dimension where the Nazis won World War II. So everything has been whitewashed. And to hear that line from last week's episode, one got out, it's a black. That is deeply disturbing, especially me being a black. And as hilarious as it was in some sorts, it doesn't exclude the fact that it is disturbing, because in reality, our reality in the real world, we're not too far from that. But that's neither here nor there. So she is running. She was left running from these group of white folks who are trying to recapture her to put her in the camps with the rest of the blacks and whatnot. And when we pick up with Chris and Harcourt in Argus over there, this is the one part of the episode where I was like, oh man, it kind of took some of the air out of the balloon, to be honest with you, because it depicted Chris as such a moron. It felt, if this scene felt so slapsticky, just dumb comedy for comedy's sake. I just did not like this scene. And it was the scene when they're in Argus and Harcourt is telling Chris, because Chris is still holding the flag that's revealed to have the swastika on it, And it was like, wow, this is not the dream world that I thought. That's what's really going through his head. And Hardcore is telling him, like, how you didn't pick up on all the signs. And he's like, well, I didn't really pay attention to all that. She's pointing out the book, the Nazi book that's on everybody's desk. Okay, cool. Who pays attention to all that? But then this is where I was like, man, this was so stupid. It's a giant mural of Hitler on the wall. And it isn't like this is the first, not even the second time he's been in his office. He's been there quite a few times. You would notice that. It wasn't a picture. It wasn't a framed photo on the wall. A whole wall dedicated to Hitler. How you walk past that and didn't see it? And I know his attention was drawn to Hardcore. He was so singularly focused on her that he didn't notice a lot of things. I get that, but an entire wall, it just came off as dumb. It came off as him being super dumb. Now, Christopher Smith, aka Peacemaker, is not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I know that. You know that. Everybody knows that. But my God, give him some credit. We're supposed to be cheering for this guy. And I'm like, man, this dude is a complete moron. If you couldn't notice that, and honestly, it took me out of the episode a little bit. I was like, this is dumb. But anywho, we go back to Vigilante meeting up with his doppelganger, and he's running it, this version of Vigilante, running it down to our versions, what's all going on in this dimension, how the Nazis won here, and so on and so forth. And they had a great back and forth, and one of the best lines in the entire episode, where that Vigilante 2, we'll call him, he's like, well, how's it in your dimension? How is it on your world? And he's like, oh man, Americans, we won the war. And that version of Vigilante 2, he was like, oh man, that's great. You must live in a utopia, And our Vigilante, he just gives that little like, well, it's not as nice as you think, because the reality is they're not too far off from one another. Earth X and our Earth, Yeah, the Nazis didn't win here, but you still have a presence of hardcore racism in this country, in this world. And so it's not too far off. It's done more behind the scenes in our reality as per on Earth X. But I like that little scene there. I just like everything involving Vigilante. To start off this season, I didn't like how that character was coming off. Being a big fan of that character in season 1, but from episode 3, maybe 4 on. No, it was 3. Episode 3 on, I was all in on Vigilante. All in. I love that character. And so we pick back up with Alabayu. She's still running from this group. Once again, another scene where it just got a little too silly, to the point where she's running from this mob, and she's outrunning this mob. Now, I'm not disrespecting Danielle Brooks here, but she's not going to outrun that mob like that. And she dives in the swimming pool to get away from. Go around the pool. I didn't understand why they had to get in the pool, but it was to set up Judo Master come in and saving her and electrocuting this mob in the pool. Cool scene. I like that little kill. That was exciting and fun. But it was just silly at the same time. I know what this show is, and I know what a lot of people probably saying right now. Like, why? How can he be that critical? Well, I know that the show is funny, but we're in a period in this show where the story has driven us into dark territory. And it is like they ramped up the silly. Let's go dark. If we're gonna go dark, let's go dark. Now we don't have to go just straight up moody, depressing darkness here. Yeah, you need something to break the levity. I'm all for that, but it just turned it up to 11 this episode. It felt like maybe it's me. Maybe this episode caught me at a bad time. I don't know, but it didn't it didn't quite deliver for me, those points. Now, as the episode went on, it had some really great moments, between especially John Cena. John Cena had some powerful moments in this episode. Going to the scene when Peacemaker and Hardcore escape Argus, and he gets on the Peacemaker cycle, and they're riding, and Hardcore lays her head on his back while they're riding, running from the police, and holds his hand. And the look on his face was so beautiful, man. It was just it was like a look of, it was like major relief. You could see the weight literally roll off of his shoulders, somewhat confirmation of what he's been seeking out of this relationship with Hardcore. Even though there was no words exchanged, there wasn't a passionate kiss or anything like that, but that little gesture, that moment was enough for him. And I thought that was beautifully done in that scene. Him on the motorcycle, and that look on his face was like a child. He just, John Cena just, great job here. And then the scene with him and his brother Keith, after Keith returns to the home. This after Argy is killed yet again by Vigilante this time, no doubt, who wanted to kill him, or our version of Argy, in season 1 and didn't get the chance and was upset because he couldn't. Finally gets to do it in this dimension, or this Earth, and it was the wrong one, because this Argy was different, even though we are in Earth X and is Nazi ran and whatnot. He wasn't with that. He didn't agree with that, and he wanted to help our Peacemaker out, even though he technically killed his son, his real son. But he believed in his heart that it was an accident, that he didn't mean to do it, that he's a generally good person and whatnot, and he got killed. And so there's that moment, and then the moment Keith, he goes buck wild for this. He wants to kill Peacemaker because he caused all this. He brought all this. And later on I'll get to it there, but they have a confrontation. They fight. The gang jumps Keith, and Keith ends up getting shanked by Vigilante. Yeah, I think Vigilante shanked him too. And they beat him half to death. Eagerly get some shots in on him. I mean, they were tearing him up. And John Cena, in this moment, man, just went all in. He went all in, emotion wise. You felt it. You actually felt it, because he's looking at him, and they're showing flashbacks of when he killed his brother in his reality, and he's just apologizing, like he's sorry, he didn't want to do this, he didn't mean to do this, he didn't, and you can feel it on him that he knows. It's like he's cursed. A matter of fact, he asked the group, he's like, what is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? And the pain of just being poisoned everywhere, everything he touches is destroyed, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking in his performance. Love John Cena, and this in this episode. The episode ends, Rick Flag Sr. They're awaiting him and his agents are awaiting John Cena, well, Peacemaker, to return from out of this dimension. They come out. Leading to this, we get a cameo from a character that was in the Superman movie, who was working with Lex Luthor with the dimension. I forgot that character's name. He was the one with the glasses. He didn't really want to uh, open the dimension at the end because he knew it was going to split the world in half, and that's what it was ended up doing and whatnot. But that character returned in this episode, another cameo, if you will, and he pinpoints where the portal is open. That's how Rick Flag Sr. and Argus was there when Chris and the rest of the clique came through. Chris turned himself in, and that's how the episode went off. I'm excited for this season finale because I want to see where this goes. What does this open up for the rest of the DCU? Going by the trailer for next week's episode, looks like they're going to be bouncing around in different dimensions to see what they're all about. All the while, Peacemaker will be locked up, so let's see what transpires next week. But this episode was fine. It was a fine episode. It wasn't hard hitting like I was expecting. And once again, I would like to say that it was probably my expectations being too high for this episode. If I watch it again, which I will watch it again, I'll probably have a different take on it. But right now, I thought it was fine. Had some really cool moments throughout, funny moments throughout, emotional moments throughout, and it kept me thoroughly entertained. And that's all you can ask for. And so it was a good episode. I just wish it was a little bit more. But I would like to know, what did you think of this week's episode 7? And are you excited for this season finale? What do you think will pop up next? Do you think we'll get another cameo in here? A lot of people speculating we're going to see Superman pop up in next. Well, I'll say it eventually, but there's only one episode left. So next episode, I don't see any reason for him to pop up right now, unless they really go deep into this dimension thing and it really sets up what's going to transpire in Man of Tomorrow. So, I would love to know, but I would like to know what you think. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 7, Like a Keith in the Night. I want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.